right. Well, welcome to another episode of the Godfident Man podcast. I am your host, Robert Vargas, and today we have a special guest. As I mentioned, from time to time, we're going to have guests on the show to give you some perspective, some insight on how, as men, right, we can not just be encouraged, but we take the lead in a way that that would honor God, in a way that we can help spread the word, right, spread the gospel, but at the same time, our walk as men of God is not one that we should do alone. So that being said, I want to introduce a guest of mine today. His name is Mike Elias, and I've had the pleasure of knowing Mike for many years, I think almost over a decade. And so we've had a friendship for a long time, and it's been a privilege and an honor to kind of reconnect over the years. And I know that today I really want to focus on what God has been doing since the time that we've known each other. Mm-hmm. And I know you have an amazing testimony and you have a heart for men. And I want to talk about that today.
Well, Robert, thanks for having myself and inviting our ministry. Because I don't say you're inviting me, I'm saying you're inviting our ministry. And our ministry is called Men of the Hourglass. And the opportunity to be able to come and share what God has done over it'll be 14 years this week.
Wow.
It's amazing. So
yeah.
Any light that we can share and hope to change the hearts of men to chase after God. That's what we do.
Amen. Now, so it'll be 14 years when?
June 7th.
June 7th. Wow. That is so cool. Yeah. So how did you start? Tell me a little bit about what was the birth of MOTH, right? Men of the Hourglass.
I think every man, there's a time that every man comes and is like, what is my purpose in life? And I know that I asked myself that question many, many times early on in my life. And when I was struggling in my marriage and struggling in my relationship with my kids and even with my life and in general, I was trying to find purpose. And I came at a crossroad one time, and through that crossroad, I eventually had to seek help and seek guidance. And through that seeking guidance, which was back in 2004, so 20 years ago, I was seeking direction and counseling, and I seek the help of a Christian man called Frank Casey. Frank Casey has gone to be with the Lord since, but he was a mentor. He was the one that rescued me from the abyss. I was in a very dark place, and he rescued me. And then it wasn't too long after that, I did a program called Top Gun, which is a 9-month discipleship training class.
I see you've got the shirt.
Yeah. And then through that Top Gun course, I was able to find purpose, find that God had a plan for me. I didn't know what that plan was, but it was in 2004. And 2 years in through that discipleship training, I woke up one morning at 6:30 in the morning. I saw a vision of an hourglass. And it was at 3:30 in the morning. I'm like saying, what's this vision of an hourglass? And you always hear about, when you're in ministry, that God gives people visions. And I saw this vision, and I didn't understand it. But the more I prayed about it, and the more I asked God to help me understand it, it was the vision was that every man has his hour. So the upper part of the hourglass, the top part of the hourglass, represents our sinful nature, the way the man lives on a daily basis. The center part of the hourglass represents the narrow path, which is Christ, coming to Christ. And the bottom part of the hourglass represents grace. So every man has his hour that happens.
Yeah.
When that hour is between the man and God.
Yeah.
So God had given me this vision in 2006, and for 4 years, I was bouncing from one men's group to another men's group to another men's group, sharing that vision, hoping that maybe there would be somebody that had the same vision or God had spoke to, and it just wasn't happening. And like 4 years had gone by, and I'd gone through different, like I said, classes and training, and I was involved in marriage ministry. And it was through the different marriage ministries that we were hosting, my wife and I, that we were hosting multiple classes 2-3 times a year.
Yeah.
And we had dozens of couples coming through these classes over the course of those 4 years. We were teaching Prep for Marriage classes. And it was on that 4th year that then finally God said to me, now you can start your ministry.
Oh, wow.
So for 4 years, I was like, I didn't know why God had given me this vision and what was the purpose of it.
Wow.
But it was, I I persevered, I pushed through, and I stayed, just trusting that God would persevere. And sure enough, I woke up one morning and it was clear as daylight. God says, go to this place, ask them to give you a room, and there's a room waiting for you, and you'll have that room. And sure enough, I went there, I asked, and they gave me a room, and it was waiting for me. And he says, yep, right there, room 205, that's your room. And
Oh, wow.
And we started the ministry, and here we are 14 years later.
Wow. Now, where was that room? Where was that place initially?
It was with Christ Fellowship.
Christ Fellowship. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, we're Christ Fellowship.
Wow.
And we had that room over for 4 years. We were there. Now we're at a different location now.
Mm-hmm.
But we were dedicated 4 years. But the purpose of the Hourglass and the men's ministry, Men of the Hourglass, was to be able to get men plugged in, because through those marriage classes that my wife and I were facilitating, I came to realization that as long as men were in those classes with their wives, they were doing okay. In other words, they were becoming the husbands, they were becoming the fathers, they were becoming the leaders through the time that they were in that class. But once they stopped and they unplugged, then it wasn't too long after that they would go back to their old ways. So God had given me the vision to say, you know what? You need to start this men's group so these guys are plugged in year round. So for 14 years, we've been meeting every Tuesday night without missing.
Wow.
14 years. We have never missed a Tuesday night for 14 years.
Wow.
The only time we've ever missed a Tuesday night was because of either fell on Christmas Day or New Year's Day.
Right.
Other than that, even if it was on Valentine's, we still met on that Tuesday night.
Jeez.
So yeah, we did that for 2010. In 2013, the men kept asking me, hey, Mike, why doesn't your wife start her ministry?
Yeah.
And help our wives, because our wives need to be plugged in, because we're plugged in, but they're not plugged in, and things are just not working out. So I spoke with my wife, and she prayed about it. And sure enough, in January 2013, she started her ministry called Ladies Ignited by God's Holy Truth. Now, I know this is all God's plan, because when we started Men of the Hourglass, the acronym for Men of the Hourglass is MOTH.
That's right.
Okay, which represents MOTH. So our nickname is MOTH.
Yeah.
And then when the ladies came up with their name of their ministry, I told my wife, babe, that's very long. Ladies Ignited by God's Holy Truth. Can you all shorten it up a little bit? Yeah. She goes, no, babe, that's what the ladies. And so I go, well, what's the acronym for that? Let's write it down. Let's write the acronym. So the acronym for that is LIGHT.
Wow.
And what is the moth attracted to?
Right.
Light. So it was just God orchestrated the whole thing. We're supposed to be attracted to our wives, and by being those leaders, those husbands, those fathers, and those men that we're called to be, it really helps to become the man that our wives are going to be attracted to, and we can be attracted to our wives.
Wow. Amen.
So here we are 14 years later.
Wow. That. So that's when the men and their wives got plugged in together, and then you started doing discipleship for both, but separately. Do you guys ever do things together?
Well, the focus is we meet in the same location.
Yeah.
And we meet separately. The reason we meet separately is because men have to share men conversations, and women have to share women conversations.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. It's not, I know a lot of couples or a lot of people like to do classes with their husbands and their wives, but you're never going to get to the grit of the issues that are going on behind closed doors, or the grit of the issue that's happening with that particular man or that woman, right? We all have hidden skeletons. And the only way you're going to be able to get to those dark vices that we're dealing with is being in a safe environment where you're not going to be judged, you're not going to be condemned or anything like that you're going to be able to open up. Yeah. And our group of men, we're very transparent, and we share. Everybody shares whatever they're struggling with. And the women do the same thing. But they're not in fear that, oh, so-and-so's husband is listening to me, so I'm not going to share. Or so-and-so's wife is listening to me, so they're not going to share.
That makes sense.
Where if we're just men together, we can share, and what's said there, it stays there.
Yeah.
But we do bring the couples together once a year, and we teach a marriage class, a marriage enrichment class. Okay. And and whether it's a marriage enrichment class or a financial class or or class just to relational class. We do a lot of that. Matter of fact, we have we're getting ready to kick off a workshop here probably within the next month or so.
Okay.
And the workshop is a relational workshop. It's how to work on relationships.
Okay.
So not just marriage, but even relationships, fathers with sons, or sons with fathers, or brothers with brothers, or sisters with sisters, wherever the struggle is, right? Because we all struggle with one relationship or another, whether it's a marriage or whether it's
Parent to
dealing
child.
with a teenager, or dealing with a young adult, or dealing with a parent,
I'm in it right
or a
now.
grandparent. Yeah. So we need to know how to work in those areas.
Yeah.
So that's the whole purpose of our ministry. Our ministry is to be able to strengthen relationships. Our main focus is marriage. That is what our ministry is focused on, is marriage, strengthening marriages, because that is what the devil's after. The devil's after to steal, kill, and destroy.
That's right.
And if we understand John 10:10, God says there that he's come that we have life to its fullness. But so many people don't understand how that works. But the devil understands very clearly how it works. And how he clearly is if he can take out the husband right off the bat, then he can kill the rest of the family. So he tries to steal the relationship that any man has with the father.
Yeah.
Then he tries to kill the relationship that he has with his wife. And ultimately he destroys the family cell, which is God's design. And that's what we have to work on. We have to work on understanding those differences. And the biggest problem that we have with couples is, people say, what's the number one reason for divorce? People say, finances.
Finances is what they usually say.
That's what they say, but it's not that. It's communication.
Communication.
Because if you can't communicate, then you're going to struggle in finances.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if you can't communicate whatever you're struggling with, you're going to struggle in that area. So if you can't communicate about your intimacy, if you can't communicate about your affection, if you can't communicate about your finance, if you can't communicate about your children, or about the sport, or about the vacation, or about the trip, or about the retirement, if you can't communicate any of those goals and dreams that you have, you're going to struggle in your marriage. So the whole purpose of that is learning how to communicate with one another.
Oh.
And that's what Men of the Hourglass and Ladies Ignited by God's Holy Truth are all about.
Yeah. That is awesome. That's awesome. I know that one of the things that you had mentioned, the last time we connected, it was over the class. You had done a class on Cherish, and we went through that book, and it was a very. I've never taken a class like that before, and so it was really, really great to be able to kind of reconnect in that way, in a forum with other couples, and it's a small table and then a teaching, but there's also things to work on during the week, right? So it's a very engaging type of a program. And do you guys do, like for the guys, outside of just the teaching and doing courses, is there anything else that MOTH is doing to build these guys up outside of just the Thursday nights? Well,
every 2 years we do a retreat called Wild at Heart.
That's right.
And it's the curriculum that John Eldredge uses. But I've adjusted that curriculum to be a not just a men's retreat, but even men and father-son retreat.
Okay.
In other words, we've the last 3 retreats that we've done, we've included fathers to invite their young adult sons or older sons to attend.
Okay.
And
that's powerful,
because there's a lot of relationships that are broken between fathers and sons that don't understand. Me, myself, personally, this last one that we just did, I had all 3 of my sons there.
Wow.
At the retreat. And we had some major, major breakthroughs. I mean, it was just a testimony that came out of that. It was just amazing. Yeah. But not only that, we've also included the wives now in the retreat.
Okay.
So we usually go up to Tennessee. We rent the cabin.
Okay.
2 separate cabins. The women have their cabin.
Wild wilderness. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Women have their cabin. The guys have their cabin. We do our own retreat. The girls do their own retreat. Okay. And at the end of the retreat, we all come together as a whole and get the testimonies. Yeah. So with my 3 sons that were there, one of them that's married, 2 of them that are engaged to get married, they were there with their fiancés. So the fiancés came, the wife came, my wife was there. So it was just a beautiful experience, not only for my immediate family, but for those that also came to be able to experience what they would wish they would have with their children.
Right. I'm sure that was special.
Yeah. So there was a lot of fathers that were there. Who says, man, I hope I can come to the next retreat with my son and experience what you experienced, Mike, because it was really impacting. Wow. And same thing on the women's side. You know, they do their curriculum, and they have some major. So that retreat is powerful. It's an 8-session teaching. Mm-hmm. But in between sessions, we do extracurricular activities. Okay. To make it fun. To kind of break it up. So we go out and we do all these activities together. We do zip lining, ATV riding. Nice. Okay. All kinds of different activities, and the women do the same thing. Okay. We even did the escape game, which was really cool. It's a team building program. Okay. How to do team building. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. We do it every 2 years, so the next one will be in 2026. Okay. And then we do things locally. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about, doing something, whether it's an evangelism to go out and preach the word in downtown West Palm, or help the homeless, or just do a project together. We try to figure it out and then do those things together. We're always open up for ideas and looking for people that want to come alongside us and share their ideas and their goals. It's not about what I want to do or some of the leaders want to do. It's what anybody that would be attracted to our ministry would want to be able to come alongside us and participate or even partner with us. Okay, that's great. Now, I know that you mentioned going out and doing things in the community, like at West Palm Beach and so forth. Are you guys? Is this something that's affiliated to a church, or is this something that is exclusively? Is this a nonprofit? Can you tell us a little bit more about how the MOTH functions that way? Well, we are a nonprofit ministry. Yep. And we're self-sufficient. I mean, we do look for donations and people that believe in our mission. Mm-hmm. We have our own website, menofthehourglass.org, and if people believe in what we stand for, we're always asking for financial contributions. Okay. We're looking to possibly do a mission trip next year, whether it's Peru or Guatemala or Honduras. We want to do, and then now that COVID's gone, we're past COVID and all this. Traveling is becoming a lot easier, and people are wanting to do these things. Yeah. They're not as fear anymore. So we're looking to do a lot of these situations and all these things. But I wanted to get back to the purpose of the men's ministry. Yes. Right? And the women's ministry. I got in front of me, I got one of the things that I'm going to be talking about, because I told you we got a workshop coming up. Yes. And this workshop is available to all relationships. Okay. Not just marriage, and not just men, or not just women. This is going to be a relational workshop. Okay. So if you know someone that's struggling in a relationship, whether it's a father and teenage son, or older son or daughter, whatever the relationship is. Yeah. If someone is struggling, this would be an ideal workshop for them to come to. Okay. Okay. When does it start? Especially if they're married. We haven't set the date yet, but it will be soon. We'll get that information to you. Okay. Maybe you can share it with others. Definitely want to make sure. But just to give you an idea of what it's called, and it's let's talk about relationships. Yeah. Not marriage. Relationship. This is effective communication. Open and honest communication is the cornerstone of any healthy relationship. Listen actively, express yourself clearly, and validate the feelings of others. So we're going to be learning about empathy, quality time, respect, trust, compromise, appreciation, support, and forgiveness. Mm. So if you're struggling in any of those areas with this person, right? Mm-hmm. And you want to learn how to build that empathy or get that quality time that you're not getting, or maybe you don't feel your son's respecting you, your dad's respecting you, right? Or maybe you've lost trust. Maybe that he doesn't trust you or she doesn't trust you. How do I compromise? How do I get what I want? Or how do you get what you want? Yeah. How do we compromise? Maybe I don't feel appreciated. I work so hard. How do we feel appreciated? Maybe we feel like maybe our kids don't appreciate us because we work so hard and we dedicate so much. Or support. Maybe you don't get the support that you need at the household. Or forgiveness. Maybe someone's done you wrong, or you've done someone wrong. That's a big one. How do we get through that? Yeah. So that's one area that we're going to be covering. The other one is the marriage area. Mm-hmm. which is marriage is a significant relationship that often requires extra attention and effort to maintain. Here are some specific ways to strengthen marriages. So we're going to talk about prioritizing communication, quality time together, respect and appreciation, maintain intimacy, manage conflict constructively, support each other, keep romance alive, shared goals and dreams, forgiveness and letting go, right? That's a big one right there, huge. Right? Because you always hear, well, she keeps bringing up the past, or he keeps bringing up the past, or we can't let go of the past. Well, how do we let go? How do we not only give forgiveness, but how do we let go? And then seeking help when needed, okay? Because there is professional help out there. So we got to get the counseling. We got to get the professionals that are involved, whether it's therapy or whether it's psychiatry, wherever. Whatever it is that's needed, we need to get the help. And there is help out there that God's given people the ability to be able to provide that help. Okay, by investing time and effort, commitment into your marriage and prioritizing these aspects, you can cultivate a strong, fulfilling partnership that stands the test of time. So that's the whole purpose of this workshop. Now, there's 5 points. We're going to be using the 5 love languages of Gary Chapman. Okay. There's going to be an assessment, and everybody's going to take this assessment so we can learn what those love languages are.
Now, for those of listening that are not familiar with Gary Chapman's book, right, the 5 love languages, can you tell us a little bit about, the book itself? Just a brief, why someone would consider taking this course.
Well, that's how we communicate. If you can't understand how the other person thinks or what moves that person into action, okay, you're going to struggle communicating with them. And most people move on what? On what they like or what they love to do.
Right.
Okay, so if you can learn what that love language is, right, you're going to be able to move them to respond to you. I've stressed it this way. Politics, right? Politicians are the best at this, right? They go to this crowd, right? And they speak what that crowd wants to hear.
That's true.
It's not necessary. It's not that they're speaking the truth.
Right.
Actually, they're just speaking what that crowd wants to speak.
Right. They're speaking their language.
Yeah, speaking their language, right? Or we see it at church.
Yeah.
You get a public speaker and they come to this church. He says, oh my God, this is the best church I've ever been at too.
Okay.
You are the greatest crowd. I have never been received so great.
Yeah.
And then they go to the next church and they say the same thing.
Yeah.
From the pulpit up there.
Yeah.
And it's not saying that the church is not good, but they're saying this is the best church that they've been at. And then they use those same exact words at another church saying, oh, this is the best church. And you got the best pastors and you got the best leaders. Yeah. They're promoting what the crowd wants to hear, because who doesn't want their pastor to be elevated,
acknowledged,
or their church to be elevated.
Yeah.
Right. So now you got a famous speaker coming in, elevating the church or elevating the organization or elevating the business or elevating the program. Right. Yeah. And that's what you want. So if you get a good salesperson in there to do that and speak that love language that group wants to hear, you're going to get them to respond, to act on.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It says there's a point here. It says messages of love and appreciation in languages not valued by the recipient will tend to miss the mark. Let me say that one more time. Messages of love and appreciation in languages not valued by the recipient will tend to miss the mark.
Wow. That's powerful, because sometimes we communicate in a way that we think the other person will hear, but that may not be the way that they experience love.
And you just wasted all that time.
Wow. So this is going to be a great class. Is that part of the workshop on relationships?
No, this is just going to be a one night workshop event that we're going to do. It's going to be a 2 hour workshop. And
sounds like there's a lot of things happening.
And obviously, once we do the workshop, then couples can plug in.
Yes,
they can plug into the men's group. They can plug into a women's group and continue to grow. But some of the points that were, in the 5 love languages, we talk about words of affirmation, which is a love language. Quality time is another love language. Acts of service is another love language. Tangible gifts and physical touch.
Yeah.
Okay. Once you do your assessment and you find out which your love language is, now you know.
So everybody gets an assessment at this workshop.
Everybody gets an assessment.
Okay.
And you'll find out how it is.
Okay.
And then I'll give you an example of ideas of an explanation. Let's say words of affirmation. It goes, words of affirmation, let's say that's your love language, words of affirmation, right?
Yep.
And there's different examples here that are given. And I'll just take the top one. It says, give me a specific compliment about some aspect of my character and personality. So if that was your love language, just say, Robert, you dress very well. I love the clothes, the way you set yourself up and the way you present yourself, the way you trim your beard, the glasses you wear. I'm talking your love language now, if that's your love language.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Wow. So now I got your attention. Now you're focused on, man, he's talking.
That's spot on
here.
Yeah.
Or if let's say it's acts of service, right? It says, ask me what you could do to help me and then follow through.
That's my wife.
Okay.
Yes.
So, it says, I go, hey, honey,
right.
Can I do the laundry today?
Right.
And not only do you do the laundry, but then you fold it and put it away.
Oh, wow. Double. Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Oh my God.
Wow. And you folded. Whoa. Did you load the other one? Okay.
All the bells are just ringing across the hallways,
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. So that's how we're going to, touch all these areas, and hopefully, we can have some major breakthroughs with whatever those relationships are.
Wow.
When we have this workshop.
I love the topics because these are things that are very practical, right? Like relationships. A lot of times we're focused on just one area, but you know what? We're human beings and we have relationships all around us.
Right.
We have relationships on the way to work. We have people that we interact with on a daily basis, ministry partners, right? Friends, family, extended family. So I think that a study that kind of digs deep on how you manage these relationships and do it in a way that's joyful, in a way that's productive, where it builds others up, the way we're called to do it.
Right.
I think that's powerful. So it's more than just guys that are, hey, we're maybe in an emergency situation and their marriage needs help. It's people that just want to have enrichment and growth and have the relationships going from, I'm good to I'm flourishing.
Right.
Is that what you're?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, if we can't get a full understanding of how to not only communicate more effectively with those people, all we're doing is a disservice to ourselves.
Yeah.
Because all of us want to excel, right?
Yeah.
All of us want to get ahead in life, right? All of us want to eventually have a purpose in this world.
Yeah.
And then we're all going to leave some kind of legacy. Now, the type of legacy you want to leave, it's up to you as an individual. What is it you want? How do you want to be remembered? Did you make an impact on your children's lives? Did you make an impact on your wife? Did you make an impact on your siblings or the people that God has put around you, the sphere of influence that you had? What kind of impact are you going to have on those people? How are you going to be remembered? Do you care how you're going to be remembered? Yeah. Or do you want to just go through this world and through this life and just be just like another person that just went through,
You just made me think of a powerful comment that I heard a pastor say once, where he was describing, do we want our wives to reach heaven and when they meet Jesus, thank him for loving them through us? And what a powerful thing that would be.
That's an awesome analogy.
If they were grateful and we would know we did our job. You just reminded me of that. Just when we think about, all of these things play a role, right? And I think part of being a Godfident man is that it's not about how confident we feel in these areas. It's how we honor God in those areas. Right. Because when we honor him, then we get to love others the way it's his love that's channeling through us. Because sometimes it's hard in the family unit today, right? You've got people that maybe they don't, I remember the last political season, we're in an election year, right? I'm sure there's people who still haven't talked to each other from the last election cycle, right? And they can't manage relationships. But it's so important because we live in a society where so many people are lonely. Loneliness runs rampant. Unfortunately, because of social media, we think that everybody's connected, and they're not. And so I'm very pleased to hear that you're talking about relationships. But I think it's so vital, and every man needs to improve in that area. That's an area I need to improve in. It's an area that we need to put some time in because, a lot of times we're dragging stuff through our life, right? And we never learn to let some of that go. And then we're trying to love people the way that we want to be loved, where we need to love them the way they want to be loved, right? Because they have a language, and it's whether it's words of affirmation, which is a big one for me personally.
Yes.
So I remember going through that book, and certain things at home, right? My daughter is definitely a gifts person. I mean, she'll keep everything, every knickknack, everything you give her. That's her thing, gifts. She'll buy her perfume, and I'm like, how come you're not using it? No, I'm collecting them. I'm like, okay. Right. She likes the gifts, right?
Yeah, so. And that's we have to learn what that is, because sadly, a lot of people are not taught this growing up, right? School doesn't teach us growing up. Right?
Oh, brother, let's not get started on what school teaches and not teaches.
Yeah,
it's another episode.
You go through elementary, middle school, and high school. They don't teach none of this stuff. Yeah. They don't even teach finances, right?
Right.
I mean, people graduating from high school don't even know how to write a check, or balance a checkbook.
Yeah.
So it's very sad that in a country like we live in, that we're not really reaching the heart of young men and women, so that they can grow up to be the men and women that God's called them to be.
Yeah.
But now that we know that, right?
Yeah.
It's our job and it's our duty to be able to start instilling that in the younger adults.
Absolutely.
Don't let the curse be passed on down to the next generation, right? We have to break the generational curse. And how do we break the generational curse? Is by being truthful to our own mistakes. Because some of the men struggle with just being truthful to themselves. Saying, you know what, I'm struggling.
Owning it.
Yeah.
Right.
I love the song Man of the Mirror by Michael Jackson.
That's truth, man.
It starts with the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
And only then you're going to be able to break through. When you can get that man in the mirror and figure out what's going on there, it's going to be, and release it.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, Robert. Now you're getting me excited here. When you go to the doctor, you just go to the doctor and say, hey, I'm ill. And that's it?
No.
As soon as you go to the doctor, you say, doctor, I got this pain right here. And you point right to the pain. You point right to it.
Yeah.
Right? And he says, well, and then what does he do? Then he starts moving your arm around. Right? And then he might do an MRI, or he might do a CAT scan, or he might, whatever. He's going to do some type of exam to find out what is going on with that pain.
Yeah.
Okay. That's no different than the pain that we have in our heart. We got to point to that pain, find out what that pain is. And our ultimate physician is Jesus himself.
That's right.
Okay. And the word, when we open up the word, it becomes alive and living. And he starts showing us. One of the biggest challenges I always give men when they're walking, they want to start this new journey, is let's get into the book of Proverbs for 31 days. All right, we just started the month of June. Okay. So that for the next 31 days, one proverb a day, meditate on it, pray on it. And whatever talks to you on that particular chapter that day, right? It's chapter 1 or verse 1, or however you want to analyze it, right?
Yeah.
Because there's 31 of them, right?
That's right.
Whatever that proverb is on one, you go through all the different verses, and then you highlight the one that talks to you significantly.
Yeah.
Okay, this one then.
Yeah.
By the end of the 31 days, you go back through and just read through all those that highlighted you. And I can promise any man that does this, by the end of those 31 days, they're going to look at their life differently, and they might even find their purpose in life.
Wow. I like that. So for guys out there that are struggling just to get started, right? They're like, oh my gosh, well, maybe I hope to be married one day. How do I prepare to be that husband? Or guys that are maybe, unsure about how their marriage is doing. Maybe they're not connected because the relationship isn't there. I remember, learning about a way that you can easily get, jumping into the scripture. They usually say, hey, start with the Gospels, right? But I like the fact that you said start with Proverbs, right? Get some wisdom and evaluate your life, right? The scripture says, Lord, search my heart. And a good way to search your heart is you have to open yourself to that.
You know what's cool about Proverbs? Each one starts with my son. This is God talking to you through Solomon, right? My son, listen to my words. And he, as you read through it, it's a personal relationship you're already starting to have with God. Because he starts off each of them with my son. Now you put yourself in that position as a son, right? Listening to your heavenly Father.
Yes.
And you start reading, you start highlighting. You says, "Oh my God, this is me. This is where I'm at. This is where I'm at." And you'll see that every proverb has a story behind it, and you're going to be able to identify. I can promise you, there's not one man that will read through that and not be able to identify with it. Every man will identify with one proverb, if not all of them.
Of course.
You know.
There's wisdom around money too. And finances.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Things to stay away from, people to stay away from, right?
Yeah.
So no, that is great advice. So for guys out there that are looking to start a relationship with Christ, or even learning about how do I get started reading the Bible, I love that advice, right? You start with the Proverbs. Start on the first day, go through 31 days. And I love what you said about highlighting what stands out to you, where maybe God is speaking to you in an area, and then going back and evaluating your life. I like that.
And then when they get done with Proverbs, now if they're really hungry, right? If they're really hungry for the word, if they're really hungry for their purpose, if they're really hungry for that deep relationship with God, right? Then I send them to the book of John, and John will walk them right through the acceptance of Christ.
Yeah.
That he is the way, the only way, that, God sent them into this world, not to condemn the world, but to save the world. Right.
Yeah. Amen.
And then maybe not too long after that, as they plug in, you get into the book of Romans, and just on and on and on. You just keep growing from there.
Yeah.
But usually that's where I go. That's as my years of experience, right? I've been doing this for 20 years now. I've always started with the book of Proverbs and then jumped right into John.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty clear. Though now we have obviously The Chosen, and I think that series of Chosen.
What do you think about The Chosen?
I think it's spot on with what they're teaching and what they're saying, and it literally brings the Bible alive.
Yeah.
When we go to the movies, right, we have a tendency to get into the character and see the things, right?
Yeah, of course.
And then you can start identifying with some of these characters. You start saying, "Oh my God, really? Is that how he really was? Or this is how it really happened?" Right? Because we learn, right? We have 3 senses of learning, right?
Yep.
Hearing, seeing, and reading.
That's right.
Right? So through those senses, we're able to identify with that. And they've been doing a really good job with Chosen.
They really have. And what I like is we were watching, season 4 launched yesterday, right? Like they did the live stream, and my kids just jumped on the couch and they were plugged in, and so that's what I like about it, that I've yet to see a show. Right? There's so much junk on TV. We don't even watch TV. Right. We haven't had regular TV in literally over a decade. So, you can't come to my house and get the remote and go, "What's going on?" There's nothing there. Like unless you're putting something on or you're buying something,
right.
We don't just watch TV. But to see them get excited about The Chosen, man, I haven't seen a show that has drawn in both. And then when you see the testimonies of people of what they've discovered through watching the show,
right.
Maybe they never had a Bible until they watched the show.
Exactly.
That is really, really cool. So, it's great the more we can bring Jesus into our culture, into our lives, into society. As we kind of wrap up, the whole point and the mission behind the podcast, and why I'm so glad that you were my guest today, talking about what us as men, when we lead, we help others achieve, we help others grow, we help others evolve in their faith. And that's so important in a culture and society where they're diminishing the role of man, right? They're diminishing, the effectiveness of our faith. So they're trying, but as we grow, and as the church collectively become stronger, as we look to him, right? Our King, Jesus, right. Then what happens is then we start to grow in influence where other people start to come to Jesus, come to Christ, and grow in their spiritual walk as a result. And that is really the focus. And I'm so grateful for ministries like MOTH, and to personally know you and to see the work that you've been doing over the course of 14 years. Congratulations, my friend, on 14 years of God's faithfulness in this ministry. But I believe that there's a lot more that he's going to do that is probably not even close to what he's already done. So that's what's exciting about the way God works. It's not my words. That's his faithfulness, his faithfulness, saying, hey, I'm going to show you things way beyond what you think or even imagine. And so it's really cool because I see a lot of guys sometimes as they sort of peak and they're like, yeah, I did ministry, I did this. And God's going, no, I'm looking for those that want the mountain, the hard stuff, right? I want that. And that's really an inspiration to me. And I know that you inspire many others, myself included personally. So, I've watched you over 14 years and just being your friend over that amount of time, knowing that I can pick up the phone and call you and even ask you to come on this podcast is special to me. So I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate the work that you're doing with the MOTH. We're definitely going to put on the show notes, we're going to put your website for the MOTH so people can get tuned in and figure out, hey, when are these workshops and these classes happening? And I would love to have you again and maybe even, maybe share a little bit more about your experience in your walk and the journey that God has had you walk out, both in your marriage and as a dad, because I know that it's a valuable message that many men need to hear. So one last question, and we'll end with this. In your mind, and you can take your time with this, what does it mean to be a Godfident man?
Well, I'm glad that you came up with that Godfidence name for your podcast. It's a very significant name, because every man wants confidence, right? And sometimes we don't have the confidence ourselves. Can I really do this? Can I make it happen? We go for a job interview. Am I going to be able to really get this job? Do I got what it takes to be hired by this company? Well, the good thing is that in God's company, you don't have to have the experience or the expectations or the thing that a quota that you have to meet. Mm-hmm. God meets you right where you're at, and He'll give you the confidence that you need, right?
That's right.
The confidence to get you to where He wants you to be. Because see, it's not the plans that you have for yourself. It's the plans that God has for you.
Amen. So
with confidence, right? With that, all we have to know is that God has a plan for us, right? In Jeremiah 29:11, He says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, not to harm you, but to give you hope in a future." But see, what He's saying here is that I know the plans I have for you, Robert.
Yeah.
For I know the plans that I have for you, so-and-so, right? It's His plans. And once we can give into His plans, it doesn't matter how you're going to get there. He's going to get you there because it's no longer your plan. It's His plan. So that confidence that you need, right? It becomes Godfidence because it's His plan now. But that comes with the condition, because a lot of people leave that next verse out. He says, when you seek me with all your heart, you will find me.
That's right.
Okay? See, it's when. That's the key word in that entire verse. Yeah, He has plans, but He says He'll reveal those plans to you when you seek me with all your heart. See, we want to go into there with a third of our heart or a half of our heart or a quarter of our heart, however I feel in my heart today.
Wow.
Yes. And we don't want to, that's not what He wants. He wants you sold out. He wants you to, wants you to dive into the deep. He doesn't want you to tippy-toe into the shallows. He wants you to dive in deep.
Yeah.
So if we want to be confident in what God's plans are for you, come on the next podcast and talk to Robert. He'll get you there.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Wow. So I've loved our conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today on this podcast. And we definitely would love to have you back and share some more. But like I said, we're going to share on the notes for the podcast, the MOTH website. What is the website?
menofthehourglass.org.
menofthehourglass.org. So my guest today was Mike Elias, man of God. Certainly has been someone I've looked up to for the last 14 years. He's been heading and spearheading this ministry called MOTH, and you could find some more information on that on the notes. But it's really been an awesome pleasure to have you here, Mike, and thank you so much. God bless you, brother.
Thank you, Robert.